Ready to go ahead? All right. I think you have to click through. It has these little, yeah, just keep clicking, click again. Okay, so, perfect, okay. So here's just a little overview of what you can expect from the presentation today. So we're going to go over the roles and services of the YWCA, recognizing the fundamentals of intimate partner violence, sexual assault, and sex trafficking, appreciating the impact of those, embracing what a healthy relationship looks like, how to support and be available as a bystander for intervention, and then resources and support, which we'll probably just gloss over today, but a copy of the slides will be provided, so you're going to have those as well. Okay, so please note that because of the nature of what we're talking about, some of this could be extremely sensitive and triggering. So whether you're in person or on Zoom, if this becomes uncomfortable or slightly triggering, I will not be offended at all if you need to turn your camera off, if you need to step out for a second, whatever it is to make you feel comfortable during this presentation is fine with us. And as always, we'll make sure that we are being aware and being sensitive to what people may be experiencing as well. Okay, so we're going to move forward with the role of the YWCA. So who are we? So as Karina had explained, the YW is the only comprehensive provider in Anne Arundel County. And so what that really means is that we have a full wraparound of services. So we have the only safe house shelter program for domestic violence within the county. We have an abuse intervention program working with perpetrators of domestic violence. And then we also have legal services, education services, and our clinical or counseling services. And so we really serve victims in general, typically through intimate partner violence, which can also include sexual assault, teen dating violence, stalking, and trafficking. So here's a timeline of our services. The essentials are really that we were founded in 1920 on the premise of women's rights, particularly around voting. And what we found was that over the decades, women were really coming to seek our services for domestic violence and sexual assault concerns more than any other concern. So in the 70s, we really took a shift and started to focus on those primarily. And over the years, we started adding additional programs. So we started with legal services, then started adding in the counseling, the abuse intervention, the safe house. We are in our second safe house now, which replaced the other safe house. We opened that about a year before COVID began. And we are getting ready to launch a brand new initiative coming up later this year. So, and that's this slide. So we are really, really excited that we are partnering with Turnaround out of Baltimore to open a youth residence for victims of sex trafficking. So this will be one of the only in the state of Maryland. It will have about 8 beds with single rooms for these youth, and youth will typically be staying with us for around 18 months. So about the programs that I've mentioned, so our legal services primarily work with peace and protective orders. We primarily focus on domestic violence for that, although we will take certain sex trafficking or sexual assault cases with our legal team as well. We do have a new initiative over the past couple of years where we have an attorney that specializes in family law pertaining to custody and divorce for individuals that have been affected by domestic violence. And then we have advocates that will accompany clients into the courtrooms. Our counseling program is for crisis and ongoing support. We provide individual therapy. We have play therapy studios that are designated and specifically designed for the types of modalities that we use. Same with our art therapy studio that includes having a kiln and pottery wheel, some really fun mediums for all ages. And we also provide support and therapeutic groups. We have our abuse intervention program, which works with the perpetrators of domestic violence. It's a 28-session program, so typically lasts about 6 months. and really focuses on accountability and responsibility for actions, and then learning how to have healthy relationships in the future and with new options and skills. And then our support groups, which are open to all in the community and are available on a drop-in basis. Our Safe House program is provides case management. We can house about 32 to 36, depending upon children and adult status within that program, and people typically stay for about 6 weeks. We do work with them after to find sustainable housing through our rapid rehousing program. We also have 24-hour hotlines that have a county exchange. So if you've ever seen the county's domestic violence number, that actually is our hotlines for both domestic violence, and sexual assault. And we provide hospital accompaniment for victims who have been sexually assaulted and would like to have a supportive person with them at the hospital. And last but not least, our education program. We are working on an empowerment program with residents. So it's about a 6-week curriculum, and we cover different topics to help them lead an independent life once they leave our Safe House program. We also do community engagement, and we have a volunteer program, which is growing all the time. So to meet the staff, so Molly Knight that was referenced earlier, she's our CEO, along with our CFO, Chris Gray. They have both been with the organization for over 15 years now. We have myself and Davida Portness, who are the main directors of the programs at the YWCA. So as you can see, I oversee our our clinical services, and Davida is our legal services. We have assistant directors and coordinators in our management team as well. So Crystal Teague is our assistant director, and she's actually right now our acting director of residential services. We have Tiffany Duran, who oversees the perpetrator program, and Brittany Grant, who is our assistant administrative director. Okay, so let's take a look at what is domestic violence and sexual assault. So we're going to ask everybody, whether you're here in person or over Zoom, to please answer this question. There will be a poll popping up if you are on Zoom. So true or false, intimate partner violence is an impulse control or anger management problem. So if you're in person and you think it's true, raise your hand. We have like a maybe in person, but probably not, and then everybody else is not in person. Do we know what the responses are?
You ready to do the results?
Yeah.
The results for the Zoom is out of 18 votes, 5 said true, 13 said false.
All right. So it seems like most people know this stuff pretty well. So the answer is false. So domestic violence or intimate partner violence has nothing to do with impulse control or anger management. And actually, this is the biggest myth that we hear everywhere. So I'm not surprised that there were a few people that actually thought it was true, because typically people think when this type of violence happens that it's because somebody lost control and they have anger problems, and so they acted out. And actually, what is known about domestic violence, and we'll get into some of this a little bit later too, is that it's a power and control issue. So the perpetrator is actually very much in control. They typically are the person everybody thinks is this amazing person when they meet them. They're very dynamic. They don't tend to have a lot of problems at work or in their social groups. It's very directed at the one person, and it's been planned out and well executed what their act is going to be towards their partner. Does that mean that sometimes they don't, have a loss of control and act out? No, they're human, and so they may also have times where they did lose control of something, but that is not what domestic violence is. Domestic violence is very planned and it's manipulative. All right, so next question. True or false, it is easy for a victim of intimate partner violence to leave the abusive relationship. So everybody in the room is saying false. We'll give just a minute for everybody not here.
got a lot of falses in the chat.
All right, so mostly falses. So that is correct, again. So it is actually very difficult for a victim to leave their abusive partner, and there's a million different reasons why. It could be a social reason, it could be a financial reason, it could be due to them hearing from their partner that this will never happen again, what we call the honeymoon phase. It could be a cycle that just continues to repeat for this person, where they have hope, or they know who this person used to be in their mind, and they don't feel like what they want is to start all over again and have to deal with that. And they feel like the person can change and things will be better. On average, it takes about 7 times for a victim of domestic violence to leave their partner. So it is very common for people to come into our services more than once. It is very common for people in their lives to get frustrated with a lot of our clients, and for them to feel more isolated because, you know, if somebody is repeating these same patterns over and over again, people in their lives that don't understand what it's like in an abusive relationship will often think, well, why don't they just leave? Or I don't understand. If someone did that to me, I wouldn't stay. But it is very different when you're in that relationship for you to actually have the ability to leave, or to know, you know, what your resources are for after you leave, and to be able to start over from there. It is also extremely dangerous. What all of the research shows is that it's about 73% of cases of domestic violence is true threats to their lives, and homicide occurs after the person has informed their perpetrator that they're leaving or has actually left. So it can be very dangerous for somebody to leave. True or false? Most sexual assaults are perpetrated by a stranger.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm. 25%, 25 responses, 25 answers were false.
All right, you guys are getting better and better at this on every single time. Yes, the answer is false. And actually, this is something that you guys are way ahead of the general public on, because a lot of people, when they think of sexual assault, they think of somebody who's just attacked out in the street somewhere. Yes, that does happen. That is not the majority of the time. It's typically somebody that is known. Sometimes, I think it's about 9% of the time sexual assaults are happening in the schools themselves. About 6% are committed by, you know, more than one person in a situation. 30% by a former partner. And a lot of times that also is overlooked as sexual assault, because sometimes people think, well, they consented previously, or we've had a sexual relationship previously, so it's okay for us to do this now, even though they don't feel like it. But that still obviously is not okay. And so that would be considered a sexual assault. And only 19.5% of sexual assaults are actually committed by a stranger. So it is primarily by somebody that someone knows. Okay, and the final true or false question. Sexual assaults are the most underreported violent crime. All right.
The results show, of the 32 responses, 31 said true, 1 said false.
All right, and that is true. So 3 out of 4 sexual assaults actually go unreported. So it's something that we really want to bring light to, because it's that important. And just like why people don't leave, there's also millions of reasons why people don't report. Fear of not being believed, fear of not having enough evidence, thinking it's their fault, feeling guilt, threats and of violence to them if they do. So there's many reasons why people don't report sexual assault, but it is hugely underreported or underreported. Okay, this is another one of those, just keep clicking. Big one more. Okay, perfect. So looking at intimate partner violence, 1 in 3 women and, I'm sorry, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men will experience this as an intimate partner. So they will be the victim of domestic violence. That's huge. And so typically when I am doing this presentation with lots of people, but I'll make you guys subjected to it anyway, I would tell people to kind of turn around and look to the person to the left and right of you, because one of you has likely been a victim or will be a victim at some point. So here we only have a few people, so I won't make you do that, actually. I changed it. But it is way more common than anybody thinks. And typically people say, oh no, well, I don't know anybody who's experienced that. But that's because they're not telling you. This has been for a long time considered a family issue and something that's not discussed outside of the family. And so it's really important that we know that this is not a family issue. This is a societal issue. This is something that is happening everywhere you turn, really. 1 in 10 high school students, that's huge. You think about how big our high schools are, particularly in this area. That's a lot of students that have been affected by teen dating violence. And just looking on average over the course of a single day, over 20,000 phone calls are placed to domestic violence hotlines. So that's a lot. And then the biggest piece to kind of highlight is that the increase of homicide, if there is a gun in the home, and they have here as a presence, but really if it's in the home, increases by 500%. What we have noticed over the past few years as well is that all of the data is showing that your typical forms of homicide due to domestic violence, which in the past were typically strangulation or stabbing, that has now really turned into like pretty close to 97% gun violence. So with sexual assault, we have similar rates. 1 in 5 and actually it's 1 in 3 men and 1 in 5 women. I'm sorry, 1 in 7 men. I'm botching this today. 1 in 7 men and 1 in 5 women will experience sexual assault in their lifetime. Again, shockingly disturbing numbers. Every 68 seconds, an American is sexually assaulted. So that means in the hour that we're talking today, over 50 people have been sexually assaulted within that amount of time. Really kind of puts things in perspective because we don't think about it happening that often. We think like, oh yeah, maybe like a Friday night after everyone's been out drinking and something could happen. No, this is round the clock happening. And one of the other really important things to highlight is that women who are raped experience post-traumatic stress disorder within the 2 weeks following their attack, about 94%. That's a huge number. That means that if we think, oh no, people aren't affected by these things, it's really not that big of a deal. They'll get over it. They just need time to heal. People are not getting over things. You don't just get over something like this. There's so much that goes into trauma, and then that kind of turns and shapes them for who they are in the future. I have a client that I'm working with right now who was sexually assaulted, and she's in her 60s. She was sexually assaulted about 2 or 3 years ago. And she doesn't even know how to go back to the lifestyle that she had previously. She cannot figure out how she was able to function before this happened and to be able to return to that state. So it is life-changing for people at any age. So we've spoken about domestic violence and sexual assault. We haven't spoken a whole lot about sex trafficking. This is something that is kind of like the new buzzwords, but it's been happening for a very long time. 98% of sexually exploited or trafficked individuals are women, but don't let that number deceive you. There are a lot of men that are also trafficked, and that number is growing every single day. This is looking at what the percentage is kind of globally. But if you even look at more local numbers, the percentages of male and female are not even, but they are more disparaging than this. So there are more males, particularly in this area, and with us being in the DMV area and right along the 95 corridor and having BWI in our back corner, this is definitely a huge issue for our county is trafficking. Looking at the 4.5 million people that are victims of sex trafficking in the US, and this is not just individuals who were trafficked and brought here from other countries. These are our own people here that were born and raised within our country that are being trafficked within the country. These are people that are being groomed for this. These are people who are being kidnapped for this. This is any type of situation. People are introduced to sex trafficking through family members, through peers, through people that they think are interested in having a relationship with them. And really are setting them up to be trafficked. So worldwide, sex trafficking is a $99 billion industry. Huge. Why do these things continue to exist? That's why. Because there's money to be made, and somebody thinks that this is the way that they're going to do that. So exploiting people is much easier than selling drugs because you don't run out of product. So it has become huge, and it is also very underrated. And if you look at what the numbers are and then think about how that's underrated, it's a big issue. This is one of the reasons why we decided at the YW to start focusing on this more, because we really see that the resources that are out there are lacking, and it's really important to start focusing. Okay. So just for time's sake, I'm going to skip over who is an intimate partner violence, and I'm going to turn it straight into the video, which will explain that for us.
Intimate partner violence is defined as physical violence, sexual violence, stalking, and psychological aggression by a current or former intimate partner, and is preventable.
Intimate partner violence threatens the well-being of millions of people and their families every single day. Intimate partners may include current or former spouses, boyfriends, girlfriends, dating partners, or sexual partners.
Intimate partner violence can occur between heterosexual or same-sex couples. Some victims may suffer just one experience, while others endure violence that lasts for years.
1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men have experienced intimate partner violence in their lifetime. And 1 in 10 high school students have experienced physical teen dating violence, which is a form of intimate partner violence.
Intimate partner violence consequences are widespread.
It impacts physical and mental health. It results in billions of dollars in medical, mental health, and lost work productivity costs.
But the good news is that intimate partner violence is preventable. We have strategies that can help you prevent this problem in your community. We can prevent intimate partner violence by teaching safe and healthy relationship skills, engaging influential adults, working to prevent violence starting in early childhood, creating protective.
All right. So as you can see, intimate partner violence is specifically linked towards a partner that somebody has had an intimate relationship with. Whereas domestic violence as a whole could be a family member, could be a parent-child relationship. It could be anybody who's kind of living in that home environment. So sometimes the words are used interchangeably, but it's important to kind of note that distinction, because there is a difference between if something is intimate partner violence and if something is considered domestic abuse. Primarily, law enforcement often will consider something a domestic issue if it's something taking place in the home, which would be different than maybe what our services would consider as far as intimate partner violence. So there's a little bit of a distinction there. The biggest thing to note is that intimate partner violence is about power and control. That's the biggest thing. It's not a loss of control. It's not I just got really mad and I couldn't help myself. It is where one person needs to have that power and control over the other. So what are the different types of abuse that we're seeing? So there's physical violence, which is the most known, sexual assault or sexual abuse, like we discussed, verbal and emotional. But there's also others that aren't talked about very often. So we have virtual or sometimes technological abuse. So that could really be somebody who's checking your, your phone every 5 minutes, or needs to track you through the GPS on your phone, wants to know where you are, text me when you get here, send me a picture that you're actually there. So really being very controlling and trying to manipulate, who do you talk to on social media? Who, what are you posting? You shouldn't have done that. That's not okay. That's, think about how that makes me feel. So turning it back onto them. Gaslighting somebody is a huge problem with domestic violence and intimate partner violence. So making the person feel crazy for thinking that this is not going well, or making them feel like they're the problem. So, if I want to go out and wear something and my partner doesn't want me to because there's, because of the intimate partner violence and they're acting in a controlling manner, it's making me feel like I'm doing something wrong for wearing it. Look at all the attention that you're going to attract going out there like this. Like, why would you want anyone to think that about you? What's wrong with you? And a lot of times the gaslighting becomes so severe that victims do wonder, is this me? Have I done something? Why am I like this? Maybe I need to get some help because I shouldn't be like this. I'm not being the partner I should be for this person. So it can be very damaging and can create a lot of the emotional and psychological pain that lasts for years. And then economic abuse and using children are also huge ones. Economic abuse is a huge reason why people don't leave a relationship, because they often have been told, you're going to stay home and take care of the children. We are going to go ahead, I'm going to go ahead and work. I'm going to provide everything you need. Don't worry about it. But then they're given an allowance. Then they're criticized for when they do spend certain things. They're cut off from cards or from the ability to see what finances are. And then when they decide that they are ready to leave, they're unable to do so because they don't have anything to then start over. So red flags. So the impact of all of these red flags are something that I typically would spend some time going over with you guys, and we would have people kind of jump in with questions or answers, or even providing like examples of what you think love bombing is, or what you think it looks like to limit contact with friends and family. But being our unique setting with some people here and some people not here, and for just the sake of time, I'll just kind of go through one or two of them, but just to highlight that these are all red flags that have a huge impact on someone's relationship and give signs that something is not right in a relationship that can often be overlooked. And so something as simple as demanding access and passwords to someone's cell phone or technology. Well, you might say, well, I'm in a relationship that's very healthy. We share our passwords. Password sharing is different than demanding a password. If somebody has no problem with you going through their phone, but you have a problem with them going through your phone, then it's an issue if they demand that from you. You have the right to set that boundary if you want to. They have the right to not like that boundary, but they don't have the right to cross over that. And that is a huge red flag that they're going to continue to be controlling and demanding of things. It doesn't mean that you should or shouldn't, block your partner from those things. It just means that it's your right to be able to do so or to not do so, and that nobody else has the right to demand that from you. Unwanted sexual advances. So again, nothing wrong with a partner in a caring relationship kind of making the first move on somebody, but there is something wrong with somebody forcing that, and when someone is not interested or does not want to continue with that sexual relationship, even if it's at that moment or if that's at all. And then an additional one is love bombing, and I highlight that one because a lot of people don't really know what love bombing is. But that's when somebody is extremely, sweet and loving and kind and caring, but to an excess, and it's too fast and too early. So it's the person who you've met one night at a bar, and next thing you know, they're showing up everywhere you go, and they're bringing you flowers, and they're calling you 12 times a day, and they're saying, I really feel like we should spend some more time together tomorrow, and how about the next day? What are you doing? And the way I say it, it makes it sound crazy, but the way they do it feels like this person is so nice, this person really likes me, they really care about me. What's wrong with me for feeling like this is not okay? But you have to be able to trust your gut to say, it's not that the gestures they're doing are not nice, it's what they're doing is way too fast and way too soon for this. And so that's my red flag that something is wrong. If they showed up for a planned date we had with flowers, that would be lovely. If they show up at my job uninvited with flowers and want to, want me to come out and do other things, that might be too much within the meeting. So it's really the timing and the amount that happens that makes that the issue. So what do you hear when you hear some of these sentences? Okay, so if somebody were to say to you, like a family member, oh my gosh, he's so sorry, he didn't mean to do that after he smashed herself in on the ground during an argument. That's a red flag, right? Suddenly, people that are not in the relationship are getting involved in the relationship to let me know, oh, he's so sorry, he didn't mean that. Well, one time maybe, I mean, that's a little extreme for that situation, but one time of somebody being sorry for something, but repeated measures or having other people in their life needing to come and apologize for them or on their behalf is a major red flag to know something's not right here. Using a phrase like, I won't let you see the kids unless you do X, Y, and Z. Another major issue. That is not, using the children or holding them as a weapon is considered a controlling motive in a relationship. Also, I did this because I love you. So making it seem like I love you so much that I can't control myself when I'm around you, or if I didn't love you, I wouldn't even care and I wouldn't do this. Love does not hurt. Love does not do things that put somebody else at a disadvantage. That's not love. That's just not what it is. And that's an excuse that somebody says. Does it mean that the person doesn't love them? We don't know, because we don't know if that person loves them or not. But anytime that that phrase gets weaponized in that way, that as itself is not love. Somebody who loves somebody would not use love as a weapon. Okay, so what is sexual assault? So sexual assault is any sexual contact or behavior that occurs without consent from the victim. This includes if somebody is passed out drunk and cannot give consent, that also means that they have not given consent. So the consent has to be given. It can't be, well, they couldn't give it, but it would have been fine. No, it has to actually be given. If it is not, then that is considered a sexual assault. So some examples are rape, attempted rape, fondling or unwanted sexual touching or gripping, forcing a victim to perform acts on someone else, exploitation, child sexual abuse, incest, and coercion. And then we spoke a little bit about what sex trafficking looks like. I'm gonna put on this video here so you can hear a little bit.
New EOS Cashmere Skin Connection. Sugar scrub gently glides. Shave butter melts into skin. Rich cream nourishes. Wrap your skin in cashmere.
You just divide the distance by the time and... Kevin? Is that you?
I'm too bummed out to go to period 4 physics. You guys, go on without me.
What happened?
Last night, I ran to the TV like I do every Tuesday to watch Commander Xander and her amazing adventures across the cosmic pathways of yesterwear. But I must have gotten the channel wrong, because instead of a pulse-pounding hybrid of science fiction and high fantasy, it was a documentary on sex trafficking. I could only watch 5 minutes before I ended up like this.
We actually just learned about trafficking in health class, Kevin. And I think if you'd watch the whole documentary, you might feel less disturbed and more empowered. Learning the facts helped me a lot. And I think it'll help you too. Also, while this information can be difficult to process, it's important to remember that it could be happening to someone you know. we should focus on supporting survivors.
To be honest, I don't really even understand what trafficking is.
Basically, sex trafficking happens when one person causes another to take part in sexual behaviors in order to gain something of value, whether it's money, food, or a place to stay, clothing, drugs, a job, or even a ride to school. Anyone could be a trafficker, even someone the victim knows or trusts, like a family member or someone who acts friendly or romantic. And sometimes the victim might not feel like they are being forced or manipulated, or even realize that they are being trafficked. This process is known as grooming. The trafficker could promise love, a romantic relationship, or safety in an attempt to build trust with the victim. The trafficker might lie to, manipulate, or threaten the victim. Examples of lies include telling the victim that they'll get in trouble for taking part in sexual behaviors. Manipulation can include gifts or providing protection. Or threats of harm could be made against the victim or their family.
No matter what the situation, the most important things to remember are that sex trafficking is always illegal. And especially that it's never the fault of the victim.
But something like that could never happen here, right?
Actually, it's more common than you think, and anyone can be trafficked. It happens to people of all genders, races, ethnicities, sexual orientations, and age groups, from big cities to suburbs, in the United States and across the world. It does a lot of damage to whoever it happens to, even after the trafficking stops.
Is there anything I can do about it?
The first thing is to know what adults you can trust to talk to if you think someone you know might put you or other people in a dangerous situation.
And to help others, you can keep an eye out for signs that something might be wrong, like injuries that don't make sense, being gone from school a lot, keeping to themselves, or seeming more tired than usual. Of course, people could show these signs for a ton of reasons other than sex trafficking, and individual reactions to trafficking can look very different. But if something doesn't feel right, or you are worried, it's okay to check in with them, or a trusted adult, just in case something's wrong, no matter what it is.
Thanks, guys. I feel a lot better now, and more prepared to help other people. Just like Commander Xander herself! Speaking of which, can I count you guys in for Commander XanderCon next weekend? We can cosplay as the entire bridge crew, and go to the Yesterwear Geography panel, and get pizza in the food court, and try to find an original copy of the Series 1 SS Yesterbolt with pop-off starboard engines, and...
To learn more about sex trafficking or get help, talk to a trusted adult.
So as you can see, this video is really helpful in understanding what sex trafficking is and what it looks like. This is something that we use this particular video when we go to schools and we're working with youth populations as well. But I find it very helpful for all ages, even though it's, obviously it's not something we're bringing to school to share with people, but it's extremely helpful because it does explain it in a way that makes sense. And a lot of times sex trafficking doesn't make sense for people. So that's one of the reasons why I particularly like that. Okay, so similar to what they were talking about with sex trafficking, it's really important to know that the power and control dynamics of intimate partner violence are so prevalent that it's the main focus of sex trafficking, it's the main focus of sexual assault, and it's the main focus of intimate partner violence in general or domestic violence. So it carries that across all of the three, kind of the trifecta. That is the typical theme for it. If you're looking at what that looks like, sometimes a big issue that we have in the work we do is around different cultures and what those social norms look like. So somebody might say, well, where I come from or in my culture, it's okay to treat women like this, or this is how this is, it just is. And while I'm certainly not one to say that somebody's culture or somebody's social norm is not what it is in their culture, it doesn't mean that here with the laws that we have in place that is acceptable. It also doesn't mean that as it goes with for humanitarian reasons that is also acceptable. So we have to look at what is that balance and what does that look like. And sometimes there's a lot of family pressure that comes through that too, of that the man is the head of the household, it should be a certain way. Other cultures will say, no, the woman is the head of the household, we listen to what they have to say. And so it really does, our programs when we're working with a victim or with a perpetrator really are looking at what does that look like in order to make sure that we're assisting people through that process and not discrediting any of their background, but helping them to understand how they can live a healthy lifestyle with a partner in an equal manner And, not do anything that would be considered illegal in our climate. So we're gonna skip that. Okay, so the stages of abuse, just gonna run through it pretty quickly. We have what we call the honeymoon phase, which is when the tension is building. So I'm sorry, I'm lying to you. With the initial phase, I'm used to my little circle depiction of this. So we have where the tension starts building. And so actually I'm gonna start reverse. So we're gonna pretend that this is not straight across like this. We're gonna pretend that it is a cycle. Okay, so the first thing that typically happens in a relationship is the honeymoon phase. And so it's when you meet someone, you start to really care about them, you trust them, and they gain that trust. And every relationship, good or bad, typically starts this. I often explain to people that if the relationship didn't start this way, you wouldn't be in that relationship, right? So people will say, but they weren't like this in the beginning of the relationship. Well, of course not, because would you want to date somebody who's abusive? Well, no, nobody in the right mind would want to date somebody who's abusive. So typically it starts with that honeymoon phase. Then you start to notice some tension building. And so maybe there's, you get criticized for being late, or you're told that that outfit doesn't look right. Or, little bits and pieces of things are kind of leading up for you. And often victims will say that it feels like they're walking on eggshells, that nothing's really wrong, but I feel like I could set them off at any moment. That can then lead to the acute or the abusive, which are when you get to the more serious, either violence, threats, manipulation, different types of violent attempts on their safety as well. And you start to see a lot of those power and control dynamics that we were talking about. And then typically it leads right back to the honeymoon phase where somebody is, I'm so sorry, I'll never do that again. I don't, for me, it's because I love you so much. All of those other things we discussed, and then the whole pattern starts over again. I think one of the reasons why we switched away from the cycle map is because I always like to tell people that it doesn't happen in a circle. That it's not a circular thing. It isn't like you have to go from one to the next. Sometimes I describe it as more like an ocean wave. So sometimes it might start with things are great and then it's terrible. Something huge happens and it's extremely violent. Then it might come back a little bit where it's like, well, they're not violent anymore, but I kind of feel like I have to walk on eggshells around this person. And then the next thing you know, everything's wonderful again. So it can hit in any of these three at any times. And sometimes the unpredictability of it is part of that kind of manipulation and that way of somebody luring their victim back in. Let's go again. Okay, so just like we spoke about with trafficking for intimate partner violence, it can be any. Enough said on that. Looking at our client demographics, this was from 21 to 22. As you can see, through our population, 45% of our clients were classifying themselves as white. Almost 30% were classifying themselves as African American, and then a little over 11% as Hispanic. So you can kind of see the proportion there. So many challenges for people that are coming out of domestic violence situations. So oftentimes the medical bills that they have are costly due to what's happened. A lot of people will need their teeth replaced after violent attacks or other body ailments, and that we have as physical, also the trauma and the long-lasting impacts of the emotional abuse and therapy costs. People often don't have a place to go, so homelessness, they may be unemployed due to it. So you can kind of read through and see the different impacts that it can have for somebody, and it makes it extremely challenging for them to then lead an independent life after they leave a relationship because of all of these impacts that have occurred during that time. Okay, so how to kind of survive it, what to do in the meantime, and then move forward. So I'm going to actually kind of skip over this one just for sake of time. Okay, so looking at what is a healthy relationship. So we talk about what is unhealthy, but what is healthy? So a healthy relationship moves at a comfortable pace, so that love bombing is not there. There's trust that's built, and it can be built at a time that feels comfortable for everyone. It's a respectful relationship, and not one where respect has to be earned by both parties, but where respect is immediately given and until it's, deemed that it should not be given by both parties. But there's honesty and transparency in a relationship. People are communicating in a way that's healthy. So when you look through all of this whole list, the biggest thing I want to highlight is that in each and every one of these, communication is the key. And so people are allowed to have their own opinions and their own likes and dislikes in any relationship, but being able to communicate that in a healthy way so that your needs are being met and their needs are being met is what's most important. And then ultimately to have fun. That relationship should not be stressful 98% of the time. They should be fun 98% of the time. But yes, we all know life is stressful and no relationship is perfect. And so we don't want to pretend that it is. But having fun and being able to feel that you are on the same level as the person in your relationship or you're in a relationship with is the most. So we're gonna skip past this one for sake of time. Okay, so for bystander intervention. So if you know somebody or you think you're witnessing something that does fall into the parameters of what we've been discussing, the most important things to do are not to blame and judge somebody, but to listen and believe them and allow them to know that they have a safe place to come and speak. What happens more often than not is that somebody starts to become isolated from their loved ones because they are being told that nobody wants to hear them talk about it anymore, that, that's not the person they're seeing, or, well, you haven't left already. And if you really wanted to, just leave. So don't come and talk to me about this until you make a different decision here. And so what happens is they feel alone and they feel like they have no one else except for that perpetrator to turn to, because that perpetrator is very willing to be that listening ear for them until they're ready to, follow back through that cycle. So it's really important. The number one thing for here is that you do not need to find the fix or the solution for them. You just need to let them know I'm here for whatever you need. I can be your emotional person, but let me refer you to somebody who can actually help you through this. We will never force anyone to leave their perpetrator to have our services. We won't convince them it's a good idea to leave. We will sit with them through whatever process they're in and help them make sure that they're safe in whatever situation they decide to be in. So when you're having those conversations, make sure that they're careful conversations. So you don't want to say something like, you're always with them. Why are you always with them? Or why are you still with them? They treat you terribly. Just leave them, right? If you stay, then don't complain to me. So all the things I was just speaking about before, those are the things you don't want to do. But the biggest one is that you don't want to suggest couples counseling. A lot of times people think, oh, well, you guys need to go to couples therapy together. When it comes to domestic violence, that is never the right idea. Because couples counseling means that you have two people who are equal in the relationship that can communicate in a healthy way together and learn new skills to do that. When you have domestic violence, you have a power imbalance. So you have one person who's manipulating the other, and that person will continue to try to manipulate the entire process. They will use what's discussed in therapy against their partner, and they will never be willing to compromise. So at the YWCA, we provide individual counseling. We do not provide couples counseling for domestic violence, and we highly discourage against mediation in court and couples counseling. Does that mean we would never consider couples counseling? We certainly would. If you have a victim who has left the relationship and is in a new healthy relationship that wants to learn how to grow in a healthy relationship, we would invite that victim and their new healthy partner to come in for couples counseling. But whenever there is domestic violence present, we do not.
So you don't suggest mediation?
No, not if there's domestic violence. Because the perpetrator's main goal in domestic violence is to have that control over the person. So there's no way that that's going to go smoothly. Yeah. Okay. So here's all the lovely resources. So there's a whole bunch of pages of resources here. You will have that in the slides when you receive them. So I won't even go through them, but there's resources for us. There's resources for the One Love Foundation, which primarily works with teen dating violence and youth, particularly college age. There's also resources for other programs throughout the county and the state of Maryland for trafficking and for others that will be in your slide packet. So if anyone has any questions or comments or anything for myself or for Brandon, we're happy to.
We have hand raised in the chat. Elizabeth, Bray, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. It was wonderful. I just wanted to ask if you provide services for women that are perpetrators.
Yes, we do. So perpetrators also come in all shapes and sizes. So we actually have about 11 perpetrator groups right now. We have mostly men's groups. We have a Spanish-speaking men's group. We have a youth group, which is for ages 16 to 22, 24, and we have our women's group as well.
How many weeks are for women?
It's the same. It's 28 sessions.
Okay.
So our youth group is the only one that's different. That one is 20 sessions, but the sessions are 2 hours instead of 90 minutes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Jim Cripple, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, thank you. That was an absolutely outstanding presentation. If we have someone that we think is a potential victim and there's not an obvious crime involved, and we want to get them into that services you provide, should we first go through the police or crisis response, or recommend they contact the crisis line directly, your crisis line?
I think it probably would depend on the situation. So like if they have acknowledged that they're in that type of situation, then I think just referring them directly. My concern, and I might just be misunderstanding a little bit, but my concern with involving law enforcement directly would be notifying the perpetrator that there's an issue, and then that could be potentially dangerous for the victim. So we always want to make sure we're doing everything in the safest way possible. We do have advocates at the YW who could reach out to people. So if you knew somebody that you were concerned for, you could provide us their information and we could reach out to them. It would be their choice if they decide to engage or not in services, but we're happy to do that as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right.
Well, thank you very much for your participation. Stacy and Francis brought along some resources for those of you who are in person. Feel free to stop by and get some resources on the way out. We would like to turn your attention on the QR code before you. So if you're here and you'd like to scan this QR code, it will connect you to a link where you can provide some feedback on today's Domestic Violence 101 presentation. For those in the joining us virtually, you can do the same thing. We'd love to hear your feedback on this presentation. And we also would like your feedback on the forum. If you have some topics that you'd like for us to address during the forum, please feel free to let us know. We certainly want this to be meaningful to you this time together as we address equity in our county. So share your feedback with us as well. You can always contact us at healthequity@aacounty.org. We also maintain Facebook pages. Check those out for information that is available in the community that addresses equity, whether it's an event, a meeting, or just general information that may be useful to you. We appreciate your connecting with us today. Thank you so much. I hope this was very informative, and we will share these slides following this presentation. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
Appreciate this.
So,